Hey, look at that. I'm actually using a camera while I'm doing a walkthrough or tutorial. Imagine that technology and upgrade in these videos. It's pretty cool. I don't know why I haven't done it before. I don't think I really knew that I could do it in combination with recording my desktop. So we're going to be jumping into InDesign today at a very basic level, getting just our toes wet, okay? And then the water is pretty cold, so we're not going to be jumping in full on because we need to get used to this new animal. As I stated in the class materials, this is not going to be an in-depth, hey, now let's learn InDesign as well as we've learned Illustrator. This really is just a transition point for us to be able to take all of the information that we've gathered about designing and building work in Illustrator and publishing in Illustrator, but also going to the next step up in publishing, which really is done in programs like InDesign. It would be considered the industry standard at this point. So I have a file for you that I want you to open up. It's called, what is it called? Publishing 1, something like that. Layout 1. Okay. I have a file that you have downloaded from the website called Layout 01, and it looks like this. And this is InDesign. So when you open it up, it opens up InDesign. You may have a startup screen or something, just whatever, get rid of it. Just let this file open up so that we can learn a very basic level of a few tools and some processes, and we'll get more detailed in our next session. So what we have here is a document that I set up for us already. We'll talk about setting up new documents here in a few minutes. But this is a legal size piece of paper turned on its side, so it's 8.5 by 14. And I have just some text in there right now that just says let's start. So to get started, why don't we use the very first tool in the toolbar up here, which is the selection tool. That should look familiar and it should behave more or less how you would expect it to be. It selects things in their entirety. If we go down the tools one item, we have the direct selection tool. So it's just some similarities between InDesign and Illustrator already. As you would expect, it's made by Adobe, so even those tools exist in Photoshop. Now we're going to look down below that. There's the page tool, the gap tool, and the content collector tool. We're completely avoiding those right now, so don't even worry about them. Down below that we have a type tool. That should be familiar. A line tool. You can draw things. That is great. We can use a pen tool, and hidden under the pen tool are the add anchor, delete anchor, and convert point tool. Okay, so those should all be familiar with us as well. There is a pencil tool, and hidden underneath that pencil tool we have a smooth and an erase. So those shouldn't be too foreign either. And then we have a frame tool and a rectangle tool. These are, well, the frame tool is going to be very important for us to be loading content and working with elements within our layout. This will be kind of a new concept to us as we go into this publication process. It does have several shapes that we can use, but for the most part you'll be using the rectangle. And then the shape tool has your rectangle, your ellipse, and your polygon as well. And this would behave just like you would expect it from Illustrator. We have scissors and a free transform tool. We have a gradient swatch tool, gradient feather tool, and then below that the notes. You can leave notes for yourself or people who you're sharing the document with. The eyedropper tool, the sample colors, the hand tool to navigate around, and the zoom tool. Below that we see that we have a fill and a stroke and our apply color. So the control bar looks a little freaky. Look at that. It's loaded with lots of stuff, and you might just be looking and going, oh geez, I don't know what any of that means. But we'll very carefully and slowly get you comfortable with some of those things. Let's go back to the selection tool and let's just select the text. You can just click on it and it's selected. Let's delete it. So there we go, action number 1. We just accessed something and deleted it. That's really easy, right? Now let's set up a few elements for a makeup page here. So we're going to sort of pretend that we're doing layout on this page. Maybe it's just one page of a book, okay? And I kind of like the long format. I don't know why. But we need content. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in a picture. So if you want a picture, you have to draw a frame of where that picture is going to reside. So I'm going to get my frame tool. It's the one with the X through it. It's not the rectangle tool. So make sure you chose the right tool. And I'm just going to click on this guide over here, this margin, and drag myself a box. And notice that as you drag, there's a little helper element that comes up, which is your total, dead center, which is good for designing on a grid. So there is my frame. This frame now could have content in it, right? It could be text, it could be a photo. I say right as if you know. You might not know. I need to get my photo in there, and there are several ways you can do it. Okay, so in order for me to get an image in this frame, I am going to use a panel called Mini Bridge. Mini Bridge is a miniature version of the program Adobe Bridge that is part of your Creative Cloud suite of applications, and it's also Adobe Bridge comes with any suite basically or group of applications that you get from the Creative Bundle. So I'm navigating into a folder of mine that I have already set up. I've got a couple pictures here. This is the picture that you'll be looking for from this file that you downloaded. I had a couple other images in there. So you got to look for the old door. An old door, you can drag it and drop it in to that frame and it lands right there. I can collapse Mini Bridge and get rid of that. So right now this image is very large compared to the frame that I have drawn for it to live in. So I need to scale this image down. There are some nice features just in the control bar up here that allow us to do that. And if I look towards the right of my control bar, there are a group of little buttons with handles on the corners, and these are all different arrangements or fitting styles for this frame and the image. I'm going to choose to fit frame proportionately, right? There you go. Fill frame proportionally. The other one would be fill content proportionally, and they'll give you different results. So one favors height and one favors the width. That's the deal here. So I know that I'm getting all of my image from left to right, but there is going to be some cutoff on the top and bottom, and that's fine because I'm just trying to get a nice dramatic shot here. So as far as this image working inside this frame, there's two things you need to understand. This little icon in the middle, the circle, is there for you so that you can reposition your artwork without having to move the frame. It's kind of cool. So I can drag it down if I needed to, but the frame stays in place. If I wanted to favor more of the top end of my photo, or if I want to do the same thing to the the bottom, it actually just happens that this image works best pretty much when you choose to fill proportionally. But that's great, right? So that's part of your the benefit of working in layout here is that I don't have to worry about dealing with the border of the frame. I draw it, I know that's what I want, and then the picture can live within it however I need it to. I can still shrink the frame, right? But it doesn't change the scale of my image. That's awesome. So I can do the corners, the sides, top or bottom, whatever. I can do things like rotate it, and that deals with the frame. Actually, that rotation deals with the image too. But so that's how you would place an image in a frame. So let's do one more. Let's get another frame up over here. And you could draw another frame if you wanted to. So we can come over here and draw, and it's going to snap to common boundaries and edges, so that's helpful. There we go. There's a new frame. So I'm going to open up Mini Bridge again, and there's a file in there. It was called Old Boot, and I'm just going to drag that old boot in there, collapse my Mini Bridge, get my selection tool, and at this point I'll try to fit it again. It's not as big as the door, so it's a little smaller, so I'm just going to reposition it so I can see some of the laces maybe, and maybe I just want to see the arc of the shoe on the bottom. Whatever. That works for me right now. So there, you've got two experiences now loading an image into this document. Let's deal with some text, shall we? Same way as getting images in there, you use the frame tool. So I am going to draw a new frame for this top area. I'm not really sure how far I want this text to go, but I'm just going to do something like that. Okay. Now that I have my frame designated for some text, I can use my type tool to put it inside there. Okay. So once I click inside the frame, it accepts my text tool. It's got the blinking cursor. I can now type whatever I want, and I can type in something like the great old days of Western Western lore. There we go. Storytelling. So the great old days of Western lore. If I wanted to deal with any of this text, I can select it here, and there are attributes on my control bar that you would expect to pop up if you're dealing with text. If I use my selection tool to select it, those attributes do go away because I'm dealing more with that frame than the text, but the text is still selected inside that frame, and I can use a palette for that text under Type and Tables called Character. It's just like the character palette in Illustrator. If I call up the character palette, it opens up, and I could find, you know, a better font to use. I'll use maybe the Mesquite. So in this character panel, we have our different font sizes, so I can increase this either by choosing one or clicking on the point size there. I am going to take and make my frame a bit longer so that I can accommodate a little bit larger fonts. I'm going to go kind of all the way across like that. This is not good text design right now. It's a little too ornamental, but for the time being, I'm going to run with it. So there's the great old days of Western lore, and that could be the title of this little article I'm writing or the page of information that I'm delivering. I'll close that. Now let's get some body copy in there and just talk about body copy. So another frame, and I'll draw halfway because this will be good. This will be good for us. Actually, screw it. We're going to go the whole stretch because that'll be good for us too. So now I want to put new text in here, and I'm going to choose the text tool. I'm going to click in there. It's ready to go, but I don't really know what I'm going to type yet. But I'd like to get an idea of how it's going to look. Maybe I'm waiting for text from a copywriter or something, right? So from my type menu, I can choose to fill that field with placeholder text. How awesome is that? That's so cool. I could, have copied and pasted a bunch of stuff that I found off the web or something, but this is way faster. So this body of text right now is going the entire distance of the document, which is generally not a good practice in layout design and in the editorial sense. If you want people to read stuff, your columns shouldn't be that wide. It's just it's too much, and that's why you see a lot of magazines and newspapers break that into smaller groups, multiple columns, basically. So if I have that frame selected with my selection tool, I can address a few things in my control bar that deal with the text in that column, and one of them is the number of columns. So right now I just have 1. You can see it right here. I'm going to increase that to 2. That's pretty good. It feels almost too consistent with the photographs. So what if I did 3? Fine, that starts to feel better. In fact, it's starting to feel a bit more professional. The other information that you have here is your gutter size, and that is the space between those columns. So by default, you get a like a 1/8 of an inch gutter, but you can increase that. Well, I'm going up. I'm going down. I want to go up. So I'll go to like 0.25. That's a nice space there. If those symbols don't quite run into each other, there's enough of a break for me to see where I need to continue down on the next line. So that's a nice attribute for doing some layout with text in a larger piece. One thing that's really kind of cool that you can do is you can select your first paragraph, just click inside the first paragraph. My paragraph is only 1 sentence long, this first one, but I'm going to click in there anyways. And if you open the paragraph panel, which is found under Type and Tables, Paragraph, okay, you have some specifics, kind of like what you'd expect from other programs like Illustrator or whatever. You could say that you'd like to do a justified paragraph layout except for the last line or so on. But there's this thing down at the bottom right that is a drop cap, and you'll see this quite often in a lot of articles or books and whatnot. And this drop cap, if you say you'd like to increase it to 1, and then left of that, how many lines do you want to go, you could say 3, and notice what's happening. It's taking that first letter of that paragraph, and it is doing that nice large drop cap treatment, which allows us to start off the essay or the article with a little bit more style and finesse. Isn't that cool? It's super cool. So there is the very first phase of managing elements in InDesign. So I wanted to keep it very simple and work with a file that I kind of get you started with, so that you can kind of understand frames and getting images in there, getting text in there, and managing those elements. What we'll do next is we'll create a new document from scratch. Cool. Later on.